your week has been great. Um, so I'm just gonna maybe wait till like 10:15 to see if we can get more people, and then if we don't have more people, I can just start a class by 10:15, if that's fine.
Which person?
I don't look at phone. You want to change it now?
Okay, I think we have a bit more people in the class. All right, so I'm just gonna share my screen very quickly with you guys, and then we could get into the meat of our conversation today. All right, so let me know if you can see my screen.
Can see your screen.
We can see your
I
screen.
can see the screen.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks everyone for letting me know. Okay, so we're just gonna dive right in. I wanted to give people an opportunity to, I mean, for for one, I would expect that everyone would be, excited to join this class and be on time, but we're Nigerians, we're Africans, and stuff like this, they happen. But we're not gonna let it deter us. So today we're going to be discussing a very interesting topic, one that I like to describe as something that is critical for your success in the journey to landing a job. It is one thing to have a very compelling application packet or an application documents. I know the last time I was here, we spoke about a couple of those things. You're having, effective application or compelling application documents that get your foot in the door. Now, once your foot is in the door, you then have to defend yourself. You then have to communicate your value. And that is where the conversation around interview um, preparation is important. So once we've gotten you ready to like get your foot in the door, how do you then go about, defending yourself and communicating your value to your prospective employer? Now, this is the interview preparation masterclass, something I like to I call it a masterclass because I believe that at the end of the session, you're going to be well on your way to landing your dream job. I like to believe that. Even before I come on these sessions, I always, like want to go over some of the things I want to talk about and hope that it has as much impact as it should have. My name is Praise. I am a management consultant as well as a career coach. Someone is writing on my screen. Please advise that you do not do that. Thank you. Okay, so let's move forward. Today we're going to look at a couple of things. I'm going to introduce myself and hopefully get to hear some of you introduce yourself as well. We're going to look at the overview of what an interview or like what an interview entails. What is the purpose of interviews? Speaking from the bird eye view of an employer and also from the perspective of of a prospective employee. What are the stages of an interview? What are some interview deal breakers from the perspective of recruiters or hiring managers? What are the general tips around interview, how to conduct yourself, and general tips around succeeding? Then we're going to look at some interview questions and answers, particularly how to go about answering it. What is the intention of this question? What are recruiters trying to find out when they ask you a specific question during an interview? And then we're going to have an interview simulation where we get to practice in real time all of the things that we've learned here in class today, and then we'll take any questions that we might have. By virtue of introduction, I want to believe I'm not a stranger because I know I took you guys in a class before, so I'm not going to introduce myself again. But maybe one of the things I want to point out is the fact that I also lead HR operations at Tel's Impact Consulting. It's an edutech consulting firm. I'm also like the HR and operations lead as well as a business partner there. I, you know, I coordinate everything HR, including recruitment and selection and things around that. I'm also a volunteer with the Nigerian Higher Education Foundation, NHEF. I do scholar interviews. So I sort of like interview scholars that then qualify for the program. So I have a lot of experience when it comes to interviewing. So you're best believe that you're in best hands. And if you pay attention, interviews will not be something that gives you jitters anymore because you understand what is required. So with that being said, I would like let me say two people to introduce themselves, a guy and a girl. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate that you do that. So do we have any takers? Do we have takers, please? I hope
Good
you guys
morning,
can hear me.
everybody.
Okay, good morning,
Yes, we can.
Omolola.
Yes,
Awesome.
good morning. My name is Amalala Wansen, founder of Perfect and Signature. I'm a fashion designer, a virtual assistant in making, and an agri farmer. Thank you.
Awesome. That's good. Thank you so much for your introduction. I believe that, by the end of this class, that introduction will probably be a bit better, hopefully. So we have Miss Hillary. She raised her hand, so can we have Hillary introduce herself? Miss Hillary, your hands are
Okay,
up.
good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Hilary Ajami Popo. I reside here in Lagos State. I'm a graduate of business administration in the making. I am a virtual assistant, an administrative assistant, and also a researcher. And an hobby I love doing, I love writing. I'm happy to meet you and every other person in this call. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. That's a good one, Hillary. Well done. I like a couple of things. We're going to discuss your introduction maybe later on as we go forward. Can I hear from a guy, please? It's good to hear the ladies, but I just want to be sure that it's a
Yeah,
balanced class.
hello.
Okay, yeah, we have Ismail. Awesome.
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
actually, I'm from Togo. I'm a mechanical engineer. Uh, that's all I can say now.
Okay, okay. Okay, I'm gonna take you to Moses as well. Thanks, Ismail, for your introduction. Ido Moses, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Price. Moses Ido. So I have ONBS Learning Digital. It's good being here, and we love to uh, interact with everyone. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Moses. So, for all of you that have spoken, there's a reason why I asked you guys to speak. So, I want everyone to, sort of like gauge how they've introduced themselves now to how they will introduce themselves at the end of this class. All right. And that's the reason why I wanted them to introduce themselves. It was intentionally created for that specific purpose. So, I know I have Hillary introduce herself, Omolola introduce herself. I then have Ismail and Idowu Moses. So at the end of this class, please stay on. I would like you guys to introduce yourself again, so that the class can see how that has improved afterwards. So let's just go straight into the content of this class. Now, my objective here is to get you ready for your next interview and open your eyes to interviews from the perspective of an interviewer. Many times we have people who are looking for jobs and they might not exactly know what is going on in the mind of their prospective employer or the interviewer. And many times that is what causes jitter. I tend to find that that's what causes data because you don't know or um, how it's going to play out. And then because of all of that, you might begin to get a bit nervous with the interview. But once you understand interview from the perspective of an interviewer, it gives you a bit of confidence, right? When they ask you a question, you probably know what the intent of that question is and you're able to answer. When you go in, you know the XYZ principles of interviews. So I feel like largely it's going to reduce all the interview nerves that people have when they go into an interview. And that's part of the essence of this class that we're having here today. So let's dive right in. Now, overview of interviews, right? What is the entire, like this whole conversion of interview? What is it really about? So I have a couple of definitions here, or a few talking points. An interview is a formal conversation between two or more people, usually with one person asking questions and the other providing answers. This is the very basic way to explain what an interview is. It's simply an interaction between two or more people, in a fashion where one person is asking questions and the other person is providing answers. But then I dare say that it's like a conversation between two people where both are asking questions and both are receiving answers. There's one thing you usually say, an interview is a two-way street. As much as you want to get a job, you're also interviewing the employer to be sure that they're a perfect fit for you. You're not going to, as a job seeker, you're not just going to settle for any organization. There are some organizations that, by virtue of your experience with them, you know that you're not going to enjoy that job. So the interview is not just from the perspective of someone is looking for a job and answering questions. It's also an avenue for you to ask questions about the organization, ask questions about their culture, and sort of like assess if that organization is a good fit for you. I don't know if that makes sense. Now, an interview could also be formal or informal. It could be a formal or informal conversation that is also used to assess a person's suitability for a job, an academic program, or opportunities by evaluating their qualifications, skills, and personality traits. Now, the word informal is highlighted here because an interview does not always have to be in a formal arrangement where you go into a room, someone is sitting down, and all of that. An interview can be largely informal. A very interesting story or something I would like to point out is I don't know how many of you have seen the movie like Wolves of Wall Street. So there was this particular scene in that movie where someone was interviewed at a pub. So for those who don't know what a pub is like a bar or lounge, as you like to call it, where people, like go for drinks, right? So at the pub, there was this guy, he was working in one of the, like top like investment firms or like trading companies in Wall Street. And then he overheard a conversation about how someone was talking about something and it triggered his fancy. So that conversation, the person was speaking about the amount of money they've made and the kind of work that they do. So because he overheard that conversation, he came to meet the person who was having that conversation and said, if you can show me proof of all of the things that you claim that you have, I'm going to quit my job and come work for you. So it was a very informal setting. The interview wasn't planned. There was no conversation. So what I'm trying to point out with that story is that an interview can also be formal. It can then also be informal. And then it's not just for a job. Interviews are also being used for academic assessment. So people who are applying for MBAs, they tend to do like an MBA interview. People who are applying for other opportunities like fellowships, like leadership engagement and things like that, you tend to see, you know, some elements of interview being intertwined into the entire application process. So don't just think about interview as just for a job. It can be used for multiple situations and scenarios. And then we said it's used to evaluate your qualifications, your skills, and your personality traits. We get to see why all of these things are important as we go forward. So like I already mentioned, that an interview can take place in many contexts, employment, journalism, research, academic, admissions, and things like that. Like moving on, we then see that hiring managers use interviews to learn more about your background and skills. So whether you be a good fit for the company or not. This point is specifically speaking about your fit for the company. And now we have different types of job interviews. I know you might be probably new to you. Some people don't even know there are different types of interviews, but that is the essence of this class, that you're informed and you're well aware of all the potential elements of an interview, and you'll be able to, succeed in your own efforts. So we have the very common one is the one-on-one interview, which can largely be structured or unstructured. We have panel interview style, group interview, which is something some people call assessment center. There's also case interviews, technical interviews, behavioral interviews, task-based interviews, and there's also something called the speed or rapid interviews. I mean, there's a whole lot, but I feel like these are the most common ones you tend to find in the job space or in the place of work, right? Or in the world, as the case may be. Now, all of these interviews that I've mentioned here, all of these types of interviews I've mentioned here can take different modes. So they can be physical or in person, virtual or online. There's an interview that is called the video recording type of interview. Now, this one I experienced at one time when I was applying. Um, um, I know during my undergraduate days, I was applying to the Bank of America, and part of the initial stages of the recruitment was to do like a video recording. So what that means is you like you get a pop-up on your screen, and then there's a question, and you're supposed to answer that question at the end of the timer. So, and many times you don't even get an opportunity to re-record, but sometimes you get an opportunity to re-record yourself at least once. There's also the live video interview where it pops up on your screen as well. It's a video interview, but then you're not seeing the like other party on that interview. So your interview is live, but you're not seeing who is on the other side of the interview. Your live video is just streaming to whoever is accessing your application. And then there's also another one called the telephonic interview. And that is basically an interview that is done over the phone. Now, let's take a look at some of these interview types so that you understand the differences. And this structured one-on-one interview is a standardized and systematic questioning. It is standardized and systematic questioning where candidate is assessed using predetermined questions, right? So for structured interviews, it means that all the candidates who are going to be assessed for that job are asked the same questions. And many times there's already a predetermined scoring system that is consistent across board because, everybody gets to answer the same question, and then there's a way you can score a particular like answer based on how like it is provided by the prospective employee, right? So so we have predetermined questions and predetermined criteria or scoring system to grade everybody on a fair level. And like I said, it's a very fair and reliable structure of interview, but then it's rigid and not flexible because many times, if you answer everybody by the same question, you might not get an opportunity to see beyond, like a person. There's a lot more that can happen by virtue of, being a bit more flexible during an interview as opposed to going with a structured way. Now, the unstructured one, which is my preference, is usually informal and open. They use informal and open-ended questions to get you to speak a bit more. It allows for more flexible exploration of a person's qualities and value proposition. So there's no set questions. is based on what's on your CV, is based on, like what you have answered. So, like, for example, you have said something in your introduction. An interviewer can, pick on something that you said in your introduction and start off the interview with those questions, right? So it's very unstructured. There's no, like question and answer that is laid down. The goal is often to dive into a candidate, or dive into the candidate's personality, your motivation, and interpersonal skills, allowing for a more holistic view of the candidate, right? Interviewers' judgment play a significant role here. However, biases can play in, and that's the disadvantage of this type of interview. The fact that an interviewer's judgment is significantly important to make a decision on a candidate. But then there can be issues around bias by virtue of the fact that, we are human beings, and as humans, we tend to have a sense of bias, as opposed to the structured like way of doing interviews. Now, the other type of interview I want to talk about is the behavioral interview. The behavioral interview now assesses a candidate's past behavior, right? It's assessing your past behavior and experiences. What that means is you've said you can do XYZ, you're a software developer, you're a virtual assistant. Now you've done all of these things. A behavioral interview is supposed to assess your previous experiences and to be able to make predictions of your future performance. So by virtue of what you said you can do, these questions are tailored to assess if you really can do what you say you can do. It's also a test of a candidate's personal values, behaviors, mindset, personality, and cultural fit to the organization, because they want to see how you will behave in certain situation. Most times, these kind of questions are done on by scenario basis. And one thing to critically note here is that for behavioral questions, the best approach to answering all behavioral questions is using the STAR technique of answering interview questions. Using the STAR technique of answering interview questions. Sorry, just give me a minute. So, are we following, please? I want to be sure I've not lost anyone. Can you maybe let me know if you're following the class? Someone say something.
Yes, sir. Yes, we're following. Yes, we're following.
All right. Thank you.
Yes,
So,
please. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Yes,
So
yes.
the thank you, everyone. Yeah, so moving on, the STAR technique is the best way or the best approach to answer behavioral questions because it highlights the situation that you're being assessed for, talks about what are the tasks that you have completed within that situation that you are in, what was your specific action, and what was the result of your action, or a reflection on what the outcome was. Now we're going to see this a bit more in practical when we move on into the class. Now we're going to move on to the next interview type, which is what we call the situation or case interviews, situational or case interviews. Now, this involves presenting a candidate with a hypothetical situation or real life situation to assess how they would approach and handle specific challenges, providing insight into their problem solving and decision making skills. Now, let me tell you a very interesting story. So, there was a time a friend of mine went for an interview and he did not know that the interview has started from the gates. So some companies can go all out when it comes to interview because of how important their talent management strategy is. They have a specific type of people that they want to work with them. And when it comes to interview, they go all out to ensure that they get the right people. So the interview started from the gates. The gatesman was intentionally hostile. The receptionist, as in, there were just a lot of things that were a lot of employees within the organization that were in different characters to sort of like test how people respond, and they can then give you specific like recommendation about a particular candidate by virtue of describing maybe what you're wearing or how you look. So for example, he said he went into the building and the gateman was a bit sluggish, and it was at the end of the interview that they were told that all of those things was a test on their personality or a fit into the organization, or how they would typically handle situation. So you want to be careful when you're going for an interview, not too careful anyways, but then just know that there can be some instances where people are tested or put in hypothetical situations. Sometimes it might not even be, like something happening in front of you, and how are you going to respond? Are you just going to be sitting there and not doing anything or minding your, like, all of those things can come in place. The other side of a case interview now can also be a situation where they give you a hypothetical situation and say, okay, you are in this place, this is what happened, this is what is going on, what are you going to do in this situation? This type of interview is usually used for people who are applying for roles in management consulting because of the focus on that career path to problem solve, right? So they give you a hypothetical business situation and say, okay, our business is facing XYZ challenge. These are the outcome of all of the things we have done, but we're not getting anywhere. This is all the information we have. What would you do, or how would you approach this problem? And that is your interview. So you should also be well aware of what a case interview is also about. Now, the case interview also gives you experience of what you typically face or do in that role. Like I said, is mostly used by management consulting firms. The other type of interview we have is the technical interviews. This type of interview is used to assess a candidate's specific knowledge, your skills and abilities related to the technical requirements of the job. Very important. There's some roles that are highly technical. It's not a role where you're coming to learn on the job. It's a role for people who actually have the skill sets to do it. So, for example, this job needs someone who is very familiar with using Python, or very familiar with using Excel, or very familiar um, with some certain software development tools like Django, and all of that, .js and the rest of them. So this type of interviews, when you come in, they give you a problem that will test your skills. So if it's Excel that they are testing for, they give you many problems in Excel and ask you to fix it. So they will give you a system and tell you, okay, we have this issue, fix this problem with this data. And that is your interview, because you cannot run away from it. If you don't know it, you don't know it. So when you're going for any technical interview, be well aware that that skill that you're going for, that you are gone with all of the information to succeed in that interview. It requires a lot of hand-on tasks that test the candidate's practical skills to ensure they possess the necessary skill required for the job, coding Excel. The final type of interview I'd like to speak about is group interviews. This one is very common for big organizations like the KPMGs, the PwCs, where they do a lot of assessment centers. Now, this involves multiple candidates being assessed simultaneously by one or more interviewers through discussions or activities. This one, I've particularly experienced a lot. And to be honest, this can be done in person or virtually, right? Where they will put you in a group and say, okay, solve this problem, or give all of you like a case or like a business challenge, solve it. They want to see how you would function in a team. They're assessing for leadership, they're assessing for teamwork, they're assessing for effective communication. That is group interview. Another type of group interview is they can have all of you in a room and then they're just throwing questions, or just throwing questions to all of you and expecting, and to be honest, it's not always about who speaks the most, that succeed in this interview. It can just be the person who is coordinating, or the person who is keeping to time, or the person who is managing or taking note of what the group is discussing. So these are the nuances of the various kind of interviews that typically organizations use to assess a candidate for an opportunity or a job. So let's move on. What is the purpose of interviews? Now let's look at this from the bird eye view of an interviewer and from the perspective of an interviewee. Because the interview it involves both the interviewer and interview. So what is the purpose for both by parties when it comes to the job interview? So on the side of the interviewer, here are some of the things that the interviewer is thinking. Or here are some of the reasons why an interviewer will even sit in an interview. For example, one, they want to assess the candidate's cultural fit. This one is very important because there is a wide consideration around cultural fit now in many organizations, because there are different personalities, that are suited for some type of jobs. So, for example, someone who is very meticulous, someone who is very big on attention to detail, might not do great in project management because there's a lot of eventualities that goes on with that job. So, for example, now people who work as program managers here at Net Factory, I'm sure that sometimes it can get crazy. But if it's someone who cannot work with a schedule or someone who works with schedule, that if this is not on my schedule, I cannot do it, that person cannot do the kind of job that people in Net Factory do because it can be very distorting. Like program and project management can involve a lot of crazy situations, and they need someone who is agile, someone who is a bit you know um that thinks on their feet, you know. So those personalities sort of like, impact on a person's ability to succeed in a role. And that's why it is very important. In terms of culture, there's some kind of organization that they have a culture of, open policy, they have a culture of, team spirit, collaboration. But if it's someone that might not, have those qualities, they might struggle in that kind of work environment. And that's why cultural assessment is very critical. The interviewer is also trying to gauge your interest in the role and the company itself. Note that I said role and company. So it's not just about the role, it is also about your interest in that organization. And many times when you go for an interview, they ask you, you've applied for this role. Why have you applied for this particular role in our organization? What the interviewer is trying to assess is it just you are looking for a job or you are very intentional about why you're applying to us? Because once a candidate is able to clearly outline their interest in that organization, it communicates to the interviewer that you are someone who is interested in what the organization is doing and you are most likely to stay longer in that job. Many people miss this part of it. And, very recently, a friend of mine went for an interview. This I'm telling you was yesterday. We were supposed to do like a prep. So he wanted to do a prep interview with me, but because of work and time, we didn't eventually get to do that prep interview. And then he went for that interview. And when he was giving me feedback, he said that they asked him, what are our organizational values? And he did not know because he did not what he did. And that's it. If I was in that interview and I ask a potential candidate, what are our organizational values and how does it even apply to you? That can be a very important interview question. And if you are not someone who is interested in company, you would fail because you don't know it. It takes someone who has intentionally done their research to know some of these things. And we're going to see even more how these things play out. The interviewer is trying to assess a candidate's skills and experience to deliver on the role. This is very easy, no-brainer. They're trying to validate the impression you have. I mean, they are also trying to evaluate the impression they already have about you from your application documents. So your CV has said you're the best person for the role, you are this, you're that. So the interview is supposed to help them assess their impression of you. So the next reason why an interviewer should be interested in an interview is that they're trying to assess the goal alignment of the candidate's expectation with the company's objective for the role. So there needs to be an alignment between what a candidate is expecting and what the organization objective for that role is. Because if there's a misalignment, that person is most likely not going to stay long in that job, or that person is not going to accept the offer. That is why interviewers, also want to have a chat with you. Because, so for example, a very good example of this is um, you are somebody who has been working somewhere, and one of your expectations is that you want to earn 2 times what you're currently earning. Maybe the budget for that role is not up to 2 times of what you're expecting. And then by virtue of an interview, they ask you, oh, like, what are your salary expectations for this role? You know, and you say, oh, I'm expecting XYZ amount. Best practice is to give a range, but the lowest range you're giving should be something that, you're going to be comfortable with. So I would like to see that your low range for giving them like what you want to accept for that role should be something that you are okay receiving. Then you extend it in case of the company's ability to pay even more than what you're expecting. I don't know if that makes sense. That is really the best approach I tell people. Like when you're being asked that question, how much are you expecting? So if, for example, you have said how much you're expecting and the HR manager or the recruiter knows that there is a specific budget for this role, and what you're expecting is over above what you're like they are going to be able to offer you, they can go back to the CEO or to the management and say, see, this person is qualified though, but this is what they're expecting. And in that way, they can be alignment. It means that your goal to earn more has been fulfilled, and the organization's objective to fill that role with an experienced person has also been fulfilled. I don't know if that makes sense. So the next thing I want to speak about is the interviewer is also trying to assess a candidate's personality, value, and work ethics through the interview. They want to assess your confidence level and communication skills, and they also want to discuss any concern and clarify on any ambiguity identified when reviewing the application that you submitted. On the part of the interview, what are you looking for when you go for an interview? Obviously, to learn more about the role and the company's culture, to tell your story, to discuss your experience, showcase your skill, and outline your value proposition to your prospective employer. If, as a person that's going for an interview, you're not thinking about point number 3, you should rethink going for an interview, because what you're going there to do is what? You want to tell them, oh, I have the skills for this job, and here is the value I intend to bring to your organization. Another role or goal for you as an interviewee is you want to convince the interviewer that you are the best person for the role. You want to also clarify on any ambiguity or gaps in your application if they exist. And you also want to sort of like connect with your recruiter. Now, this is where I'm going to maybe speak a bit on is the fact that there is an opportunity for you to possibly get a referral. What do I mean by this? So you might, because of how you've performed in an interview, for example, and maybe there's someone with more experience than you that they've also interviewed, but because of how you performed, you might not meet the specific experience level for that role, but the HR can say, this is a good talent. I'm not going to let this person just go like that. They can refer you to their organization for a different role, or they might know a HR person who is also recruiting for maybe a junior level for that same role that they're recruiting for, because these HR people talk to themselves, recruiters speak to themselves. The the process of scouting for the right talent is a tedious one, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes into it. So if a HR professional or recruiter has interviewed you and have seen your potential to effectively deliver when you're put in a position like that, they can refer you for another opportunity. That is why it is important to also connect with your recruiter during the case of your interview. And finally, this is everyone's objective is to obviously land the job. You're not going there to go and look at their face. And I hope this makes sense. Do we have any questions so far based on what we have discussed? I take it that we don't have any question and this is clear as day. So let's move on. Now, what are the stages of an interview? There are primarily 3 different stages of an interview. The first stage is called the pre-interview stage. The second stage is during interview, and the third stage is post-interview. The pre-interview stage, what are the things we're looking at here? The pre-interview stage is essential for a smooth interview experience. Why? Because by completing some key activities like researching the organization, picking the right outfit, or all of the many things that we're going to learn as we go forward, you should be well on your way to succeeding at your interviews. Success is when preparation meets opportunity. I believe this is not something that you're just hearing for the first time. But if it's your first time hearing what this means is that when like what people call success is when they have prepared for something and the opportunity presents them itself and they go for it. And that's when people say, he has succeeded because what? He was prepared for it, the opportunity came and he was ready for it. So that is essentially a description of what the pre-interview stage is about. Now, during the interview, what are the things that you need to know? Your success at this stage is dependent on the strength of the previous stage. This cannot be overemphasized. I know that's a very cliche thing to say, but that's the truth. If your pre-interview stage effort is not solid, case in point, the story I shared with you about a friend who did not know the core values of an organization. So if, for example, he has done his research properly, about that organization, there's no way you will not know the core values. And by that, your interview will be successful because you have answered those questions. During the interview, there's something that we call impression management. So the interview stage is also the impression management stage. You're managing the impression you've already created when you submitted your application. You're managing that impression by virtue of your performance at the interviews. Because if what your application document is saying is different from who they are seeing, many times recruiters don't go forward. There's a misalignment right there and then. The next thing I want to point out is that this stage of the interview, stages carries the weight of the hiring decision. This is where the show happens. So you need to ensure that this stage is on a lock. There's little or no room for do-overs. I say this a lot. I mean, some people get an opportunity. Maybe the recruiters are a bit conflicted about two candidates. They can decide to have another round of interview to sort of like make a final decision. But many times that does not happen. You don't usually get a do-over at an interview, so you need to give it your best. Staying calm and adequate practice will make this stage seamless. Then let's move on to the post-interview stage. This stage is essential to stay top of mind and potentially stand out to your prospective employer or opportunity sponsor. Your actions in this stage. So I'm going to explain the first point. So what I mean by top of mind is by virtue of what you do post-interview, you can stay in the mind of an interviewer a bit longer. You can strengthen the impression they have about you such that once they start thinking about who were the people that performed the best at this interview, your name will be, at least the top three that will like eventually come out from the mouth of the recruiter. Your actions in this stage can positively impact the outcome of the interview. You might not have done significantly well. Like I told my friend, and this is me sharing practical experiences with you. When he told me that he did not, he couldn't, say outright what the values, like the core values of the company was during the interview and how that was the only thing that he sort of like thought messed up that interview. I gave him some tips on how he can leverage the post-interview stage or the post-interview activities to improve his chances for, to land that job. And what he did specifically was he sent a mail. I told him to send a mail to the recruiter and so what he did was he sent a mail, thanked them for their time at that interview, and then he said, "Oh, he apologized for the fact that he didn't effectively answer the question around the core values, and he blamed it on interview jitters." Now, you can imagine if he had done a good job in the pre-interview stage by doing his research, there will be no need for that. But now he has, I am like apologized for that and blamed it on like interview jitters why he forgot. And then he went ahead to now outline those values. But he did not just outline those values. I told him to personalize those values. How do those values relate to you? Communicate it to the recruiter, and that can significantly improve the chances of you landing that job. We'll see more of this as we go forward. Now, the post-interview stage is often overlooked and paid less attention to, but then it can be the differentiator from candidate A from candidate to differentiate candidate A from candidate B. Now, let's look at some of the key activities in the various stages of the interview. I hope you're all following. Now, I need to confirm you guys are following. So can someone just let me know?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you are following.
You are following, sir.
Awesome. So what are some of the activities that you find in a pre-interview stage? Number one is research. This is number one because this can be the game changer for you. I tell people this in a lot. See, you cannot communicate your interest in a role or in an organization without doing proper research. And when we say research, what are the things that we're actually talking about here? You need to learn about the company, who their customers or clients are? What are their values? What is the latest news about this company? The department that your role is supposed to fall into, what is that department doing? What are they about? What is the industry salary range for a role like that? See, if you're gone with this information, most often than not, you would tend to succeed in your interviews because by learning about the company, you're able to effectively communicate your interest in that organization. By learning about their customers, you understand a bit more in detail what that business is trying to do. What is their business model? And then when you're answering questions, so for example, if it's a case interview now, you'll be able to draw certain things about your research into your answers to make it a bit personalized, such that you would wow your interviewers. You know, also understanding what the salary range will be can also help you answer the question around what your salary expectation is. I know I already explained to you guys how to go about answering that question, right? But we'll see even more in details like when we get to the point around interview questions and answers. Another thing again when it comes to research is, you know, if you're privy to information of your interviewer, sometimes you get a like when you get the email invitation to an interview, you might see your interviewers CC'd in that email. So if you're privy to that information, research your interviewers too using tools like LinkedIn. Go and check them out on LinkedIn. What are they doing? What is their role about? Are they active on LinkedIn? What school did they go to? You know, like what are the courses that they're volunteering for? All of those things can help you tailor your answers to impress your recruiters. Read the job description thoroughly. And I mean thoroughly. You don't want a situation like you need to curate your answers such that they are reflecting what the job description is saying. So read the job description thoroughly and start to think or start thinking about how you can add value to the organization. Because what the job description is the organization is telling you what their problem is. We need somebody who can do XYZ, use XYZ tool. We need somebody, they are telling you, see, this is our problem. We need you to solve it for us. So when you read the job description, you're able to start to think about how you can add value to that organization. And finally, speak to someone who has been through the process before. So if you know someone who has applied for a role in that organization or someone who is in that organization that you have a connection with, speak to them. Let them give you all of the information that you need. They might tell you, hey, don't talk too much. So that HR is impatient. All of those little details can change the overall outcome of your interview, uh, um, you know, experience. So the next thing we want to look at in the pre-interview stage is planning for the interview. So by planning, I mean find out all you need to know about the interview. Like, what is the mode of the interview? Is it going to be a virtual interview? Is it going to be in person? I've seen of people many times. Their interview is supposed to be virtually, and the next day they're already in the company in person. That is number one recipe for disqualification because it shows that you do not even pay attention to detail. So you need to confirm what is the mode of the interview, what is the type of interview. Many times you don't get to know the type, but if it's a case interview, for example, they would inform you in the like interviewing invitation email. You need to know the length of the interview. Why you need to know the length? Sometimes if you know the length of the interview, you're able to plan better. So if you are somewhere, so for example, if you don't know how long the interview is going to take, you might underestimates how long an interview can last, and then you might have like other plans. So if you know you have another meeting, it's better to move it because you know how long the interview is going to last for. What is the time of the interview? Worst thing you want to do yourself is being late for an interview. What is the venue? If it's a physical interview, research the venue, know how to get there, use different tools like Google Map and stuff like that. Also know if there are disability adjustments. So many companies sometimes sort of like do like disability adjustment for recruitment. So for example, if have an eye problem, you might not use the screen very well, they can consider you for in-person. If maybe you're someone who cannot move around easily, they can consider you for virtual. So all of those disability arrangements can sometimes be beneficial to you. So you want to know them. You also need to know what you need to bring along. So if you're coming to an interview, do you need to bring your CVs, certificate or ID cards? You need to be aware. You don't want a situation where they say, where's your CV? I don't have my CV, sir. You say, please go and find like a nearby cafe and print your CV. And God help you. That company is somewhere like in Ikoyi, in a residential area in Ikoyi or something, where you will not even see a cyber cafe around. What are you going to do in that situation? You have automatically been disqualified because you did not plan for that interview. You don't know what you needed to have. So ensure that you know everything that you need to have for that interview is with you on the day of the interview. This one I've experienced it before. When I was still like job hunting, I I saw a lot of people running helter skelter to go and find where to print their CVs. How can you just come to an interview? And the funny thing is that that information was in that like invitation email. Please come with your CV and all your certificates and like a means of identification. But some people will not pay attention to detail. They will miss out on certain information that can, improve their improve their chances to land that job. So ensure that all of the information that you need to have, you have it. If it's a physical interview, plan your journey appropriately. So if you know they are living in Sangotedo and your interview is in Yaba, if you have a friend that lives on the mainland, please go and stay with them. Or maybe the interview, or you live in Lakwe and you know there's really heavy traffic in the morning coming to the island in VI. You want to plan. If there's someone that you know that lives around, please leverage those things. Or you can communicate to your prospective employer that, see, please, oh, because of, like where you are. So let's say they've set the time for 8 a.m. for that interview. You can send an email and say, please, you know, you don't mind if the interview can be moved to maybe like 10 a.m. to accommodate your like commute, to the venue of the interview. Many employers most times will give you that grace. But if you know that they're not going to give you that grace, find someone who you know that stays close and stay with them so that you don't go late for your interview. If it's a virtual interview, ensure that you've conducted a proper tech check, a not just tech check, but also a background check. Many times you see people, they will be, if they're having a virtual interview, they will be in a very, like dirty environment, in a room where there are many clothes. Eh? I don't know how people do these things. Your interview background, if it's a virtual interview, is supposed to be a plain background. Thank God now that there are tools like virtual background that people use. But even at that, ensure that your background is clear. Do a proper tech check. Let your data be working. Let the laptop you're going to use or your phone be charged. Don't go and say, hey, my battery is low, sir. Can you wrap up the interview? That is, you don't want to be in that situation. So conduct a proper tech and background check. Decide what to wear. So if you're going for a physical interview, you need to wear clothing. By virtue of the I said I even I had it on my presentation. I said I'm like business formal, business casual, depending on the company's culture. So if you're applying for a job in a bank, you should know that if you're going for an interview at a bank, it should be what? Business formal. Because that is what the banking industry is known for. Head on full regalia of the corporate attire. Let's say you're going for an interview in a company like Google, for instance, or a company like, say, a fintech like Flutterwave, right? You should know that if you wear suit and tie and corporate heels, they're going to look at you funny because it is not in a line. In fact, it's already a red flag because it's telling them that you don't even know about the company that you're coming to apply for. Someone's mic is open. Paul, your mic is unmuted. Admin, please, if you can support me here. It's very important that you mute your mics when you're on a call if you're not paying attention. So I'm trying to mute Paul now, but I cannot. Please, guys, it's very important you pay attention. Don't come and be asking me questions of things I have discussed because it just goes through that you're not paying attention during the class. The question should be around things that I probably did not I didn't speak about, or things that you did not understand. I'm not going to answer questions that my presentation has already answered. So it's very important you pay attention to this class, please.
Okay, okay.
So like I was saying, you need to understand the company's culture to know how to dress for the occasion. So if it's a company like say Flutterwave or Paystack or say Google or Microsoft or even the role that you're even applying for can also inform how you dress. You should know that it's probably business casual will be suiting for that conversation. Now, the next point under the pre-interview stage is practice, practice, practice. This thing is often overlooked. A lot of people don't like to practice for interviews, but many times practice interviews help you reduce interview jitters, get you a bit more comfortable. So make conscious effort to practice answering some common interview questions to the mirror or to friends and family if you have them available. This will boost your confidence significantly. You can do something that we call role playing. So sometimes people, will get their friends to act as the interviewer, asking them all the questions. I have done that a lot with a lot of my friends. I often play the role of the recruiter, and many times you see that when we do those role plays, they're always very helpful for them to get more comfortable. And I mean, I don't even joke when I'm doing role playing. I'm very serious when I'm role playing. Like you would think I'm actually interviewing for that job. So if you're going to do role play, take it seriously. And then finally, what I want to speak about in the pre-interview stage is your mindset. Mindset is very important. You need to prepare not just your physical look and every other thing physical. You also need to have mental preparation for that interview. So nerves will kick in, but it's totally normal. So, if you're not even having nerves, I mean, I mean, that's where we're all working towards. But then having nerves is completely normal. Don't let it affect your performance. You can practice techniques like deep breath, where you hold in, like you take a deep breath for like, so I know the 4 4 4 4 4. I think it's 4 4 4. Yeah. You take in, sorry, 2 4 4. I can't remember the numbers now, but you take in breath for like no, I think it's 4 seconds. You take in a deep breath, you hold it in for 4 seconds, and then you let it out again for 4 seconds. That can significantly reduce your heart rate. What that does is if you take in your breath and you hold it in, it slows down your heartbeat. So, like many times you see when people begin to get like jittery and their voice are getting shaky is because of their heart is beating faster than it should, right? So if you practice the breathing technique of 4 4 4, 4 seconds breathing in, holding it in for 4 seconds, and then letting it out for 4 seconds, you see how if you try it now, you will see how you feel more relaxed, right? So it's a very helpful technique. Some things that work for some people is self-affirmation. They go into the room, they speak to themselves, oh, you got this, you can do this. And and remind yourself how awesome you are. And that can just really help you stay calm. And then finally, and I intentionally added this here because I say this a lot to people. Interview is not a death sentence. The worst case scenario is that you not get the job. Nobody's going to come and flog you or beat you. So why are you afraid? Hmm? If you don't get the job, you apply again, Abby. You get another opportunity. It's not the end of the world. So don't let the nerves get in your, oh, if I don't get a job, I'll die. No, there are 1,001 opportunities. If the first door closes, another door will open. So have a growth
Seriously.
mindset. Someone say something.
Yeah, I'm saying seriously. There's
Yeah, seriously.
1,001 opportunity. Are you sure?
Yeah, as I'm saying, I was
Okay.
going to speak about having the growth mindset. I say this a lot. Many times, people that don't get opportunities, usually don't close your mind to the fact that, oh, there are only a few. If you are saying there are only a few, it's only a few that you will see. But see, it's a global world out there. The world is your oyster. It's a global world, right? Nobody says you must get a job in Nigeria, and nobody says you cannot land a job outside Nigeria. As long as you have the required skills, you have the experience, and you're someone who understands how to translate skills and experience into value recognition, my dear, shoot your shots anywhere and everywhere. There are a lot of opportunities out there. Trust me, it's not the end of the world. So the essence of that statement is you need to stay in your zen. There's something called the avatar state. You see the way like avatar has to concentrate before he gets into the like avatar state. That's what zen means. So you stay in your zen. Relax. It's not a death. Nobody's going to fight you or beat you. So worst case scenario, and another way I like to say it is think about the worst case scenario and be fine with it. Many times the reason why we are afraid is because we don't want the worst case scenario to happen. But to kill that fear is to say, worst case scenario, I don't get this job. I'm okay with it. That you see that will significantly reduce your jitters and your nerves. So I included this slide here to show you what I mean by business casual and business formal. So for those who do not know, business formal attire is full corporate regalia. For guys, is your suit jacket, white dress shirt, your subtly patterned or solid tie. If you want to include white pocket fillers, that's great. Suit pants, dark shoes, dark socks. That is typically how you should go about it. For guys, when you're going for business formal, in terms of your suit color, it is often recommended. These colors are they are better that you have these colors on. So suits should be navy blue, gray, or black. And for your dress shirt, usually safest bet is go with a white shirt or a sky blue shirt. Don't go and wear red. Red. Don't wear red, please. Don't wear pink. Keep it very formal. And then for business casual, you can see you can wear your sneakers, you can wear like a shirt, and then your chinos pants and then maybe a sweater or something like that, for business casual, not so, serious, right? So I hope this helps you understand what I meant by those dress. And then for the ladies, we have examples of business formal, your full corporate wear. If you're going to wear a gown, wear it with a jacket, be on your heels. I don't like I don't like to advise ladies when they're on business casual to wear flats, except you have a health condition that you're willing to wear flats. But most times, putting on your heels makes you look really smart, really sharp. So if you're going for an interview that requires you to be on business formal, this is how you're expected to look. So your suit pants, if you're wearing trousers. Ladies don't typically wear ties, so just the shirt is fine. If you're going to go with the camisole, that is also good. Wearing it with your suit, skirt, or suit trouser. And then if you're going to wear a gown, have a jacket to back it up. If you don't have a jacket, it should be corporate gown. And then for business casuals, you can see on the other side, you can wear your jeans. Some ladies can wear flats in this case. You can wear sneakers if you like. Some can still go with their heels. You can wear it with jackets. You can just wear like a trouser, a pant and a shirt, and that's pretty much you don't have to wear the suit and all of that. So I hope this also helps you understand what I mean. Now let's go into during the interview. What happens in the room? What's happened? This is like the meat of the meats. It's just three key things we're going to look at, and they're really punchy and they're going to really help you understand, how to coordinate yourself. So first things first, be punctual. You should aim to arrive at least 10 minutes. If it's a physical interview, you should be there at least 10 minutes of the interview. If it's a virtual interview, click on the link 5 minutes before. It's not when it's the exact time. So if your interview is by 10, you don't start clicking the link by 10. Many times your interviews are already there. So being there 5 minutes before the actual time of the interview shows your proactiveness, shows your promptness and your interest in that role. If for any reason you're going to be delayed, contact your employer as soon as possible to explain, apologize, and arrange another appointment if it's really bad. So if there's an emergency, you cannot make it, please communicate. Don't leave your employer hanging. You can engage other applicants and build your network. So one of the benefits of coming early for interview is that, some of the friends I have now were people I met when I was job hunting, probably met at the venue of the interview, so you can engage other applicants, and build your network from there. So like I said, lifelong friendships can form there. But if chatting with people can get you anxious, because some people don't like to chat before an interview. So if chatting makes you anxious, Isolate yourself with soft music and just be in your zen, like I always like to say. So stay in your zen mode all the time. I tagged this other point, go get them. What I mean by this is some of the things that you need to look out for. So in an interview, you need to stay calm and smile. If you walk into the room, give a firm handshake. Firm handshake communicates confidence, right? So if you go into a room, and before you sit, give a firm handshake, listen attentively and think before you respond to a question. Hey, this one, it is very important. Many reasons why a lot of people blab in an interview is many times they do not understand the interview question. They don't understand what they are being asked. And that can be a really big turn off for um, a big turn off for a lot of recruiters. So if you go into an interview, ensure that you're paying attention and you're listening to the question. It is okay to tell the interviewer, oh, please, can I take a few seconds or a few minutes to think about my answer to this question? Nobody's going to fault you for that. They might throw a question at you. It might not be something that you might, you know, want to immediately jump into. You want to take time to actually think so that your responses are good. So before you be sure you understand the question. If you do not understand the question, it's okay to ask for clarification or ask them to repeat the question. Very politely say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the questions very well. Can you please repeat it, for me to understand even better? That's can number one, save you time to think about the question. But if you genuinely do not understand the question, it's okay for them to recap it. And then you can also ask for a few minutes to think about the question and say, okay, can I get 1 minute to just really think about my answer to this question? Many times interviewer will say, oh, sure, there's no problem. You communicate that you're not somebody who just jumps into things. You think before you speak. So sincerely think before you answer your questions. Like I said, know your onion. Don't go into an interview because you already made an impression by your application document. So don't go into an interview and be blabbing. Read up latest trends. If it's accounting that you're going for, you should know the accounting standards at your fingertips. Many accounting interviews I've heard people speak about, they ask them about accounting standards a lot. What does the standard say about um, you know, recognizing revenue, for example? So you need to know your onion. That's the reason why you're applying for that job. If it's software development, let them not ask you something about if you not ask them about front end and you say that is where problems usually arise. So it's very important that you've prepared for this interview. You've read up on your field of interest. You've taken your personal development seriously to prepare you for that job. Know your onion. An interview is a two-way street. I said this at the start of this conversation. Ask thoughtful questions. Ask thoughtful questions. However, don't argue with the interviewer. So, like I said, you're also interviewing the company to be sure that they are even the right fit for you, right? You want to be sure that this company is even the right fit for me. So you're also asking them, see, there's this thing that people do a lot. If they ask you, oh, at the end of the interview, most interviewers ask you, oh, do you have any questions for us? 1,001 times you want to say yes, because what does it tell them? You are interested in that role, you're interested in that company, and it is something that you want. That is what asking question does. So you want to also ask them a couple of questions about some of the things. There might be some things you have also read on their website that is not clear to you. You can ask your interviewer, oh, I saw this news on your website about XYZ, thing that your company is doing. Can you please, speak a bit more about it? I want to know. It's showing them that this person is interested in this company. They even know the latest thing that we just did. So for example, now, like you're applying to this fintech, and the fintech just raised a couple of more dollars and clinical, and then you can just, you know, ask very thoughtful questions to show that you're interested in the job. Then speak calmly and pace yourself. See, this thing, A lot of people do it. A lot of people make this mistake. You want to answer very quickly so that you show that you're smart or you know the answer. See, it's not about how fast you answer, it's about the quality of your response. So it is okay to speak calmly and pace yourself when you're speaking. If you have a tendency to stutter when you speak fast, in fact, it's even better for your communication when you speak calmly and you pace yourself while you're speaking. It reduces a lot of filler words like um. A lot of people sometimes, because of how quickly they jump into answering interview questions, they tend to and all through all through the question. But if you have thought about your answers very critically, you would be able to speak calmly and pace yourself. It's okay to take pauses when you speak. This is not a communication or public speaking masterclass. This is an interview preparation masterclass, but this is an essential element, and that's why I'm hammering on it. When you're speaking, to even help show confidence sometimes is how calmly you speak. I don't know if you guys have experienced maybe at a webinar you went to an event and this is how someone is just speaking very calmly, poised and collected, and they're expressing themselves. Many times you are intrigued by that person, how they're able to stay so calm and communicate their insights. It's a good practice when you're communicating, speaking calmly and pacing yourself. Don't sound robotic and rehearsed. Some people, so because you say practice, 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 you're not gonna be practicing. If they ask me any question on this, I will say it this exact way. The essence of practice is not for you to be repetitive or sound robotic. It's for you to have all the talking points in your head and flow with it. So don't sound robotic. Think and answer those questions. Don't use slang. So this one is something I also experienced. I was interviewing a couple of people a while back. And like one of the people I was interviewing, I asked him a question around something about the challenge that he would typically face. And then he said, first thing he said, we go run am. And I was like, what? So can you say that again? He said, we go run am. And I'm like, that was a complete turn off for me. You don't want to do that. As much as if it's a formal interview, many times you want to keep the conversation formal. Even if it's informal, you have to use respectful language. Using colloquials and slangs many times just reduces your essence as a person. So avoid these things as much as possible. Another thing I want to speak about is posturing. In an interview, it's very important that we talk about posture because your posture can say a lot of things about you. Number one, sit upright and look at the interviewers in the eyes. There's nothing that communicates confidence than this thing I just said. Sitting upright, don't sit slouching on the seat. You want to sit upright and look the interviewer in the eyes. In a virtual setting, so let's say that this is a virtual interview, ensure that you're staring at the camera. I say this, people make this mistake a lot. If you're having a virtual interview, people then stare at the screen to look at the person who they're speaking to. But many times the expectation is to look at the camera so that when the other person is looking at you, it feels like you're looking at them. So I always say this again, if you're in a virtual setting, stare at the camera and not on the screen. Looking at someone in the eye communicates your confidence and expresses your and can communicate to them that they can actually trust you. When you're lying, you tend to put your eyes away from the person you're lying to. But if you're speaking the truth, you'll be staring at them. This thing I'm saying is the truth. I'm telling you, you're not afraid to look them in the eye and say what you're saying. So that's the same thing that applies here. When you're in an interview, you don't want to be looking up and around the room. You want to look them in the eye to have an impression of trust and credibility and communicate your confidence. Another thing, again, don't get too comfortable, else you lose your composure. Many times, interviewers or recruiters tend to make you feel very comfortable. Oh, feel relaxed, take water. You will not think you're in your house. Don't be fooled. Don't get too comfortable. As much as they can be nice and very welcoming and accommodating, you know what you're there for. You're there for business. So be in character. In a virtual setting, ensure your interviewer can see you clearly and that you're in a well-lit room. My typical advice many times is if you're in a room that is not properly lit, it's best to it's best to Sorry, I just got an email. Uh, it's best to, sorry, that's my train of thoughts. Okay, cool. Um, so if you're in a room that's not well lit, it's best to face the window where the light from outside is coming from. Many times, natural light is really the best. But if you don't have natural light, you can use ring lights if you have one, or you can use a torch light if you're in a room that is not well lit. You don't want a situation where an interviewer is struggling to see your face. So if you're in a room, maybe in the afternoon, and if your interview is happening in the afternoon, you want to you want to sit facing the window so that the light from the window is shining on your face, right? And that can improve the quality of your video. So be mindful of non-verbal cues, the body language from your end. Now, one thing I say a lot is communication is not just about um, what you're saying. It's about what your body is also saying. It's about what your eyes, your hands, your body posture, your non-verbal cues are saying. I don't know if you've heard about this where they say communication is 7% what you say, 50, I think it's 56% what like your body language, and then I can't remember the numbers. I think it's like 7% of voice, something else like 50, but the chunk of it is attributed to body language. Many times your body language communicates something different from what you're saying. So you want to ensure that your body language is in check and that it is not different from what you're saying. And that's pretty much all I want to discuss in the during interview stage. And let's look at the next slide. So the next slide speaks about posture. This class is getting really long. I'm just going to speed it up a bit. But I hope this has been helpful so far. I need to get feedback, so I'm sure that you guys are following. Please let me know.
We are following, please.
All right, thank you.
We are following, sir.
All right. So in terms of posture, sit up straight, maintain eye contact, smile, and be enthusiastic. So you can see the lady on the far left. She's sitting up straight. She's maintaining eye contact. She's smiling, and she looks really good, right? Sometimes crossing your leg can come off arrogant, but if some people do it, if crossing your leg makes you feel more comfortable. Someone's mic is unmuted. Please check that you're not the one. So do not sit like this lady is sitting, slouching, looking around the room, frowning or fidgeting. It doesn't really speak well for you, you know. And if you look on the right side of my screen, the right posture is to sit the way you're sitting. So either you can sit, closing your legs like this. As a guy, you can sit with your legs. And just someone's mic is unmuted. Aisha Balogun, please mute your mic. Um, or you can. So all of these postures, can make sense for you when you go for a physical interview. Now let's look at what are the post-interview activities. One thing I like to say here is the thank you note. Many times, you know, so I said here that many candidates, additional, your mic is unmuted. I'm going to try to mute. Additional Balogun, are you in this class? Please, can you mute your mic? This is how you know people are not paying attention. Okay, so many candidates at the interview. So many candidates end at the interview stage, but taking it further can improve your chances by sending a thank you note. For example, this thank you note basically highlights, you know, things like, oh, like, what was the highlight of the interview for you? Answers to questions you couldn't answer at the interviews, any requested material. So, for example, there's a certification you said you have, and the recruiter is trying to verify it. They can ask you, oh, send me an email or send me a link to your portfolio. You want to include that in your thank you notes. feedback on your performance. You can ask them for feedback on your performance and then include a call to action. Something like, I look forward to receiving, further communication on the status of my application. Thank you. Do you get? So that's how to go about writing a thank you note. Remind them of the highlight of your, or I said, reminding them of the highlight of your interview keeps you top of mind for the recruiter. You can also politely ask if you can connect with them on LinkedIn. The other part of it is follow up. After some time and you have not heard back from your prospective employer or recruiter, you can send a follow up email. Many times, people, um, it might just be your follow up email. I know somebody who, because of a follow up email, they now started processing his application. And when he got into the organization, I think he sort of like spoke to the HR firm, and somehow it came out that it was the follow-up email that he sent that made them reopen his application. So it's always good when you've not heard back from any application that you're very like keen about, to send a follow-up email on the status of your application. This would also communicate your continued interest in the role and the company. Sometimes following up can say, I said it here, sometimes following up can save your application or make them reconsider you. Stay in touch with people in that company using LinkedIn, and they can share latest updates with you on the application process. Sometimes it's even somebody who is in the company and tell you, oh, they are still recruiting. Just calm down. So just keep in touch and just follow up on your application. Finally, I said here, it is not the end just yet. So don't just like when you finish interviewing, you now relax and say, I'm waiting for them to get back to me. No, continue your search for other opportunities. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. No matter how good you think an interview went, don't think that, oh, this interview was perfect, I hit this. You'll be shocked that they will not get back to you. So do not relent in your pursuit. Improve. So by virtue of some of the feedback they give you during the application. So for example, some recruiter might tell you, oh, there's something on your CV I don't quite agree with, or there's something that all of that feedback that you're getting by virtue of you having interviewed can help you improve your overall application document. So if there's anything that they've mentioned that is not good on your CV, you want to remove it. I know there was a time I was applying for a job, and I like there was a categorization I made on my CV, and the recruiter told me that this is not how to categorize an experience like this. It's better to put it in XYZ because it can mislead the recruiter. And that feedback helped me improve on my CV. So always take feedback and incorporate it into your application documents. Research similar companies and roles using and sending out application, even though they are not recruiting. This is what we call cold messaging. So, you know, you can apply to similar companies to that company I was recruiting, and they might even have an open role for that role that you're applying for. Accept rejection with dignity. Rejection is not the end of the world. Like I said before, having a good mindset is very important in this day and time, because see, there's nobody that got there in one trial. Many times you'd have to try multiple times. So when you get rejected, it's not a question on your person. It might just be a misalignment in culture. It might just be something. It might just even be a human error. So don't be so hard on yourself when you get a rejection and say, I'm not good enough. No, you're not always going to get it right the first time you try. So accept rejection with dignity. Let it be a push for you to continue going forward. And then I like to tell people, pray and commit your job hunting journey into the hands of God. And that will just be my final words in terms of post-interview activities. And I hope this has been really helpful. So let's look at some very quickly, some interview deal breakers. So like I said, yeah, just like in the dating world, these mistakes won't cut it. I really like this statement I made here. Just like in the dating world, these mistakes won't cut it in the interviews. So don't do these at interviews. Complimenting. I don't know if you guys remember that video like that went viral one time. I can't remember his name now. There's this like comedian, he made a video, and in that video it was in an interview, and then he told the recruiter, you smell nice. And it then became an entire issue. There was a lot of rancor around on social media. How can you say someone he smells nice? You know, some people might see like you're trying to be in their good graces and buy favor from them. So compliments are very risky. I advise just stay away from them. Another thing, there's nothing that communicates your unpreparedness for a job than when in an interview your phone rings out loud. Please keep your phone on silent. Keep your phone notifications on silent, and ensure that, in fact, my best advice, put off your phone if you're going for an interview. But because of sometimes people might be wanting to reach you, you can put it on airplane mode or put it on silence, right? Another thing, dressing inappropriately. Like I said, wearing the wrong clothing or wearing distracting clothing. Some ladies will wear the whole ornament, rings. This thing, I saw it very recently on LinkedIn. Someone was saying that she went for an interview because she was wearing leg chain and hand chain and piercings for an executive assistant role. Like, I'm like, are you the owner of the company? You want to go, you are going for an interview to be the executive assistant to the CEO, and you're wearing leg chain, wearing revealing clothing. Where are you, like, what are you trying to communicate? Unfortunately for her, the CEO lambasted her. There was no interview. It was just about what she was wearing and how she was looking, and that was how she lost that job. She now came on LinkedIn to rant, and people came at her like, in 2024, you don't know how to prepare for anything. You don't know the right thing to do. So dress the part. Don't wear distracting clothing or accessories or perfume. Some people use their perfume. You wear perfume that is so choking, and when you come into the room, everybody is asking you, "What are you wearing?" All of those things can be turned off for a lot of recruiters. Poor hygiene or being tardy. This one is very funny. So if you know you are living in Lakwe and you want to fly bike from Sangetedo or Bilakwe to VI, and you know that there will be dust, or let's even say you got somewhere and there was traffic, you came down, you wanted to enter bike so you don't get late, and you enter bike. If you're wearing a wig, you know that like air and breeze can blow the and scatter your like entire wig. So you want to be sure that you are dressed for the occasion. Sorry, if you get to, and that's why it's important to get an interview on time. Because if you get on time, you can just ask the receptionist. If it's a physical interview, for example, you can just sorry, yeah. If you get to the interview venue on time, you can ask the you can ask the sorry, I'm a bit distracted. Sorry, okay, sorry, I'm with you now. You can ask the receptionist to show you where the restroom is. You go in there, clean up nice and proper. You can reapply your perfume if you have it in your bag, and that can just if you're a lady, you can, like recomb your wig or your weave on or whatever you're wearing. If there's dust on your face, you can use the water in the restroom to wash off any form of dust or stains that may have occurred, so that you don't look tardy or smelling funny, you know. So all of these things can really impact on your interview overall outcome. Another thing to note is dishonesty or misrepresentation, lying or not able to defend your application document. So don't lie. I said it the time when we are having a session on CV. Don't lie on your CV. Let only what you're including something that you can defend, right? So you need to be able to defend everything you're saying. One turn off is when you're lying or you're being dishonest and ask you a question. Maybe you don't have a specific certification and you say you have it, or you don't have a specific experience and you say you have it, and they ask you a question on it and you don't know it. It can be a complete turn off. Arrogance or overconfidence. Some people can be very arrogant because maybe you think you know the job. You now go across your legs, sit down like a boss, and be feeling yourself. You can just completely put off a recruiter by virtue of just doing that alone. So be very careful around how you present yourself. Showing up unprepared, appearing disinterested in the opportunity, negative body language, low energy. All of these things are deal breakers for a lot of recruiters. Another thing again is bad mouthing past employers. This one is very important though. They will trick you and ask you, why are you leaving? So let's say you're currently on a job and they ask you, oh, like, why are you considering leaving your place of work? Some people can just go, those people, they're very wicked people. They're very that thing is automatic disqualification, because what the recruiter is thinking is, so if something goes bad with us hiring you now, maybe something's happening within the company, and then you apply for another, this is how you tarnish our own reputation. So you want to be careful. Make it more about you than about the place you're working. So if they're asking you, why are you leaving? Let it be about you. Oh, I'm seeking better opportunities to challenge myself, or I'm just, seeking to explore something of interest to me, or I'm seeking a place where I can be challenged, or my interest is, has, I'm like, or you can say my interest or my like pursuit have significantly like overshadowed my role in my current engagement. So just be creative around it, but let it be about you than about the place that you're living. And I hope that makes sense. So general conduct and tips, some of these things we already spoke about it. Be polite and cautious to everyone. Don't come to the interview premise with heavy luggage or bags. Many people will come with luggage and luggages. Sometimes you might not have space to keep those things. And if you have valuable items, people can steal it. You don't know who is who, so go to an interview light, travel light, go there light, so that you don't, misplace your valuable items. Some people, sometimes they go for an interview and they have to pay money to secure their properties with a woman that's like, yeah, Basira, that is selling something in the shop. She'll now be using tape to tag your stuff, except it is completely and overly necessary that you have to carry your luggage there. Please don't go with heavy bag and baggages. Arrive on time, do a quick bathroom check. I already spoke about this. Ensure you look the part. Dress appropriately. Use mild perfumes and deodorant to make an impression of cleanliness and orderliness. If it's a physical interview, knock before entering the room. Don't just barge in. And most times we advise that you don't sit or down until you're invited to, or at least until the interviewer sits down. Greet your interviewers with a smile and firm handshake. It is advised to switch off your phones, keep them in silent mode. I already gave all of these like tips to you when I was discussing the deal breakers, but I'm going to just go over them quickly. Switch off your phones, keep them in silent mode. Do not touch your phone during the interview. Show that you can listen, show positive interest by nodding and staring directly at who is speaking. You see the way the lady on this screen. So this image is showing firm handshake, is showing smile, is showing confidence. You see the way she's sitting. She's with her own notes. On the other picture, you see how she's staring at the interviewer directly. She's sitting upright and she's smiling. So that's typically how you should present yourself. Show that you can listen, show positive interest by nodding and staring directly at who is speaking. Ask or pick up names and use them. So if your interviewer tells you, oh, my name is Tayo, when you're speaking, you can use their name and stop saying, okay, I don't know. It can be very tricky. Just be creative around it. Sometimes you can say, oh, like Mr. Tayo, or you can say Tayo, depending on the organization. So if it's Microsoft, for example, or Flutterwave, you know that these guys don't really care about Mr. or Miss. You can say, oh, like Tayo, as I was saying, or when you want to say thank you, instead of just saying thank you, you can say, oh, like, thank you so much, Tayo. You're using their name. It's showing that you pay attention to details, right? Finally, keep your answers concise and back them up with examples or with documents. So if you're saying that you can do something, give an example where you've done it. Show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Leverage the STAR framework, especially for behavioral questions. And then the last part of my slides will be on typical interview questions. What we're going to be looking at here is, what is the typical interview questions? What is the intention of that question? And how can you go about answering those questions? I hope we're all following to this point. Do we have any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you so much, Isam, for always, indulging me. So I said, yeah, never lie in an interview or say something you can't back up and sound robotic like you're reading a script when you're answering interview question. That's like a no. So please, so the first question that we're going to look at is, tell me about yourself. Everybody that goes for an interview answers this question. They can change it in different ways and say, oh, please introduce yourself. Please tell me about yourself. Please, like, can we get to meet you or can we get to know you? Is the same thing. Tell me about yourself. What is the intention of this question? The intention is the recruiter wants you to sum up, it sums up the candidate elevator pitch and should be a discussion of the candidate's resume and general background in a maximum of 2 to 3 minutes. Right? That is the intention of this question. They want to know what's your elevator pitch, and we just want to like get a general overview of who you are, your background in very short, sweet sentences. Right? How do you go about answering this question? So my typical recommendation would be start with your name, qualification. So I'm using the hyphen to show the progression. So start with your name, then move on to qualifications, then move on to relevant experiences, which is like 2 or 3 relevant experiences, your career motivation or aspirations, and then finally, the next is why you've applied for the role and that company, and then finally, what value you're looking to bring to the organization. So, very typical example. Hi, my name is Praise. Um, sorry. I have an MBA from Quantic School of Business and Technology, and I also have a BSc in accounting from the University of Nigeria. I Currently I work as a management consultant at Mastercard West Africa, where I help clients to solve their most challenging problems and provide strategic recommendations for to inform business decisions. Prior to joining Mastercard, I worked at Enzo Krypton and Company, which is a boutique management consulting firm, where I also facilitated projects around human capital transformation. Um, um, uh, sorry, this is just up of my head. Business process optimizations and things like that. So I've said 2 relevant experiences, that I have. And the next thing I'm going to say, I'm looking forward to joining, a forward-thinking organization that would help challenge me and, improve my overall or deepen my expertise in XYZ field. And I've particularly applied to your company because of XYZ and XYZ. Maybe I can say that the company is focused on driving impact across the African economies, and that's something I really, appreciate. And then I'm looking forward to bringing my skills and expertise in strategy development, strategy design, business optimization, and overall problem solving to um, I say maybe the company is into, say, I don't know, I'm like oil and gas. I can just say, oh, looking to bring all of these skills to help drive your overall strategy around like green energy in the oil and gas space. You see how that is very great, right? It's a very sweet and savory introduction. Do not include irrelevant information. Another way you can go about it, another way people like to say you should go about it is, or you say your name, what you have done or achieved, and the problem you solve with your skills, and then a call to action. But this is, very um, basic. When it's not a job, if it's not a job application, most times you can use this second format to introduce yourself, maybe at an event, in a networking event, or like when you have to introduce yourself somewhere else. So another question that we have is very typical question is, what are your strengths and weaknesses? People struggle to answer this question a lot. So what is the intention? For the strength question, they're trying to assess your knowledge and the depth of your skills that you possess and how that will translate to value for the organization. That's the intention. For weaknesses, they want to check that you're also a human being. No one is perfect. Some people say they don't have any weakness. That's a lie from the pit of hell. As long as you're a human being, you're flawed, you have a weakness. So that is what that question is trying to achieve. Now, how do you answer this question? For strengths rather, highlight your key strengths, that are only relevant to the job. Don't go and be highlighting irrelevant strengths. So, for example, if this is a virtual assistant job you're applying for, you want to highlight your strength as, oh, I pay attention to detail. I am very process driven, or you can say I'm very agile to, like challenges, or you can say, oh, I have strong expertise in project management, right? You want to highlight those things that are relevant to the job, because if you're an executive assistant, you're going to be managing a lot of projects. You have to pay attention to details. So you want to highlight relevant strengths that are relevant to the job you're applying for. with examples. Don't miss this part. People just say, oh, give an example where you have shown that strength, right? Don't just say it for the sake of it, because if you say it for the sake of it, it looks like a lie. So you have to back it up with examples, or, so like I said, show, don't tell. So with examples of how you demonstrated these strengths and how it translates to value for your prospective employer. In terms of weaknesses, the best way to go about answering weaknesses question is speak to weaknesses that do not directly hinder your performance at the job. Let's say you're applying for the role of an executive assistant or virtual assistant, and you know that as a virtual assistant, you need to be very grounded in maybe using the Microsoft Office suites like Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, and you're coming to say, my weakness is I don't know how to use the MS Office suite. That is automatic disqualification. So the weaknesses you're going to highlight are weaknesses that do not hinder you, that do not hinder your performance on that job. So maybe say, if you apply for the role of an executive assistant, a weakness can be, oh, you can't even say that your weakness is time management, because that one is a problem for you. You can't be an executive assistant and you're having problem like managing your own time. So look for a weakness that does not directly impact on your ability to do the job. Like say your weakness is that, oh, you know, you you could say something like, oh, you like to work alone, for example. I know why this like weakness is good, because as an executive assistant, most times you don't work in teams. You work with the CEO or the person that you're assisting. So you can say, one of my weaknesses is that I like working alone and doing my things myself, right? But the plot twist there is that you're not just only going to say what the weakness is. You're going to tweak it and say what you are doing to improve on that weakness. So you can say, oh, I tend to like be a loner most time. I like to do my work. I don't like to depend on people a lot. But now I'm starting to understand that no man is an island and everyone needs support in some way or the other. So I'm learning, to work a bit better with people by engaging in volunteer activities. I'm also trying to leverage technology to support my work. Do you get? You're seeing how you have spoken about a weakness, but you've turned it into a strength that then communicate that you are doing something right. Another one that I know people say is that, oh, I wish I was, like a bit more like motivated. Someone's mic is unmuted. Achebe Samson. Achebe Samson, please mute your mic. Okay. So you speak to weaknesses that do not directly hinder your performance at the job, highlight generic weaknesses, but also state what you're doing to improve that weakness. So like I was saying, some people will say, "Oh, I wish I was more proactive in terms of my personal development, maybe reading more books, to overall help me improve, my like knowledge or something like that." And that could just be like a weakness and highlight what you're doing. Achebe, if your mic is unmuted again, I'm going to send you out of this class. Okay. Very quickly, tell me about a time when you found a better way to do something. This is a very interesting, so this is a behavioral question. A behavioral question basically tests your ability to have done something. So they give you a scenario. Oh, tell me about a time when you've had to work with a difficult person. Oh, tell me about a time when you've had to lead a team. What is that question testing? Leadership. If they ask you, tell me about a time when you've had to work with a difficult person, what is it testing? Your teamwork and collaborative skills. Oh, tell me about a time when you have initiated something or led some or innovated around something. They are testing your initiative and innovative skills. Tell me about a time when you know you have single-handedly led a project end to end. They're testing your project management skills. Tell me about a time where you know you've had to struggle with competing deadlines and priorities. What did you do? They're testing what? Your time management skills. So these are ways that behavioral questions take form and shapes. So they usually come in scenarios. So how the intention of it is assessing a candidate's competence in taking initiative and going above and beyond. check your knowledge as well of the STAR framework of answering interview questions. So how to answer is using the STAR framework to answer all behavioral questions. And what does that mean? STAR means situation, task, action, result, or reflection. So for situation, set context, tell a story. So if they tell you, tell me about a time when you've had to work with a difficult person, you could say, oh, I remember very vividly during my time at Net Factory, we were given a task to work within a team engagement. And, we had this like team members who was like team member who were the AWOL, they were unavailable and unreachable, right? I've set context, I'm telling a story. Then task, I'm like, we had a task to deliver like a presentation within a really short period of time, and we needed all hands on deck to ensure that we are able to meet up with that deadline. I've explained what my task or my responsibility was in that scenario. Now I now go on to say, what did you do? What was your action? So I then so what I particularly did was I made effort within my part to reach out to them by sending them like messages across multiple channels, emails, like WhatsApp, and I also tried reaching them directly. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to reach out to them, and I had to communicate this challenge with the like organizers, and like that really helped us to get a shuffle of team members, to effectively deliver on that task. That could be one way that story could go. The story could go in a bad way. So your stories can either go great outcome, bad outcome. So if it comes to a great outcome, right, you speak about the result. So I've said that I spoke to the organizers, and then like they were able to reshuffle. So the outcome of it was that they were able to. So because of what I had done, there was now a result. The result was now that the they were able to reshuffle my team and give me people who were active, and then were able to effectively deliver within the like timeline that we're given. So that is the result. If it goes bad and say, oh, and I reached out to them, and there was nothing that they could do, to help solve that problem. So like the team then decided to take it on. So maybe we did not, unfortunately, when we were unable to meet up to the deadline and we didn't pass through, because I'm saying this because it's okay for the outcome to not be good. It's not every time that when it has to be like behavioral because it has to always end good. And that's why I said here, result or reflection. So if it ends bad, you now have to speak about your reflective learning. You can now say, oh, like looking back at that situation, what are the things that I could have done differently? This is already positioning you as someone who is of a growth mindset, someone who is thinking forward. You're saying, okay, maybe we would have effectively structured the team, or we would have outsourced some of the things that we needed to do, or would have leveraged technology to ease our work. These are ways you can communicate your value as someone who is thinking outside the box. So, like I said, the outcome could be good, it could be bad. But then ultimately, you need to know that if it's a good one, then you're talking about the results. But if the outcome is ultimately bad, you need to speak about the reflective learnings that you've gotten from that experience. I hope this makes sense. So let's quickly move on. I'm out of time. I'm out of time.
Please, we can't hear you again.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Or is it just from her end?
I hear you loud and clear.
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, good, good. So I think that you need to check on your network, Baba. I'm not sure I saw your name coming. So just check on your network and be sure that it's not coming from your end. So I hope that makes sense. You understand now what the STAR technique is of answering interview questions, and you're able to effectively do it when you're put in that situation. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to go over these other ones. Another question that typically comes up in an interview is, why do you want to join our organization? This is where they test your interest. So like I said, the intention, gauge your level of interest to join the organization. Do you know their values? Are you a cultural fit for our organization? That's what this question is testing. Why do you want to join? Or they'll tell you, oh, you've applied for the role of a virtual assistant here at Nest Factory Company. Why exactly are you interested in joining us as a team or joining our team? What they're asking you is, so ways to answer, you need to research the organization, know their values, and this will be an easy breeze question for you. Speak like you're already a part of the organization. So when you're talking, you'll be like, okay, cool. I'm so for example, if it's next factor I'm applying to, I'm saying things like, oh, I'm particularly interested in how the company goes about human capital development, for example, and I want to, you're speaking like you're already in there. I want to bring a different view to managing projects. So now I'm speaking like someone who's applying for the role of an executive assistant or a virtual assistant. I'm like, I want to virtually design systems and processes for Next Factory to effectively deliver um, efficiently on their virtual programs. That is very sweet and simple, very top notch, very personalized, very focused, right? Speak like you're already in the organization. Like I said, personalization is key. Just communicate your like, this person is already with us. He's already saying things that they want to do when they join us. So it elevates your overall talent appeal. Now, I already answered this question. What is your salary expectation? Intention is they're trying to check alignments of objectives of the talent and the organizational budgets. Can they afford you? They want to know how much you also value yourself. This is also this one is very important. Sometimes because of the range that you tell them, see, I'm telling you, don't pity for these employers. Well, this is for people that have experience. But if you know they're entry level, take what they're giving you because what they're going to train you, you're going to learn on the job. But if you're someone that has experience, you know your onion. Don't pity for these employers. I mean, be reasonable, but don't say something that will not be beneficial to you. Say what's on your mind. One very important advice I got many times from a friend of mine, a senior friend, he always tells me, praise, if you're going for another job, if you're leaving a job for another job, let your expectation be to X of what you're currently earning. That's only when it makes sense. 2 times what you're earning. If you want to be very reasonable, you can come down to say like 1.5x of what you're earning as a reason for enough reason for you to jump ship. If the company is not willing to give you that, sometimes moving, except maybe you're tired of where you're working and you just want a different environment, or maybe it's getting toxic and you just really want to move. That's only when I advise you just go for whatever. But almost if you know and you have the skills, you're not exactly running from where you are. If they're going to poach you, let it be worth your while. Don't just jump for any reason. So sometimes if you're not gonna tell them, so if for example now they have a budget for this role of like say 700K and they don't ask you what's your salary expectation, and you're saying anything between 250 to 300, it's already telling the employer that you don't even value yourself enough. You might not be the right candidate. As I'm saying, if you have the skills, and you see how the pre-interview stage is very important now because you have done research to understand what the industry salary range for that role you're applying for is. Then you're able to give informed decision or information about what you're supposed to earn. That's why all of that and all of the stages of an interview is very important. It is very, very important. So if you have done your research, you should know, like I said here again, do your research on industry standard, give a range, have a walk away amount. I cannot overemphasize this. If they're offering you anything below what you know is enough for you to jump ship, you can decide not to go. It's not every job that is for you. As long as you're not even in a hurry to leave. And I usually say this, the best time to find a job is when you already have a job. Many times, if you're applying for a job and you don't have any job, you will just settle for anything. But if you already have a job and you're just looking for the opportunity, and like, what will motivate you to jump ship is what they are offering you. They have to offer you something that is worth your while. I'm spending time on this conversation because I know we all like money. Money is a very important conversation. So please do not undervalue yourself. Do not undervalue yourself. give them a range. Let the lower range be something that you can take, then stretch it up a bit. So if you know that this role, or say like where you're currently at, you're earning like 350. If your goal is to X, your range, because if you know your own, you know, and you know you have the skills to live on that job, you cannot say, oh, I'm looking at the range of 700 to 1 million naira for this role, which is the lowest range is your comfortable salary. And always clarify if it's gross or net, because some employers can be very tricky. They will tell you, oh, we're going to pay you 700 gross. What that gross means is that there are still going to be some deductions, pension, um, or tax, or some other allowable deductions that happen to salary. Ensure that you clarify, is this the net salary range, or like some employers will tell you how much the role is. So clarify if that is gross or net. Net is what you're going to take home every month. That's what you're going to enter your account at the end of the month. But your gross will shock you. Sometimes you tell you gross is 700K. At the end of the day, what enter your account is 500,000. And you'll be saying, what happened? What happened? They've removed them tax. They've removed like pension. Maybe there is something around housing allowance. They've removed it. All of so be sure that you know the difference between gross and net when you're having these conversations. And I hope that is very helpful. When you don't know the answer to an interview question, what do you do? I've included this here intentionally for sometimes so sometimes you might not have all the answers, I don't know all the questions. So what do? You can prepare, you can crack. So the intention is they also want to check, can you crack under pressure when you don't know something? How do you handle it? What will you do in a situation of distress? That's also a way for them to assess that. So the best way to go about it is communicate your lack of knowledge. Don't go and be rambling and trying to answer the question. If you didn't day, it didn't day. If you don't know it, you don't know it. Best way, oh, unfortunately, I don't have the answers to this question, but I can go back, do my research, and respond to you, give you a more informed response via email. If you have an idea, you can say, I mean, I stand to be corrected. This is what I think. So you can take a stab at it. So if you know that you have an idea, take a stab at it and say, so I stand to be corrected, or I might not have all the information, but this is how much I know. And then you say what you know. Please correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I think. They might correct you if you're wrong, because nobody knows it all. Another thing is, again, it's okay to ask for time to get back with an appropriate answer or response. I've already said that already. You can ask them for time to, go and do your research and come back with them with a more appropriate answer. And then finally, this question is very recently, I've been seeing this question a lot in interviews, is what personal development effort of steps have you made to prepare for the role? What they're trying to test here is, are you prepared for this opportunity? What is your disposition to personal development and having a growth mindset? Because, and then what you want to communicate is the courses and certifications you have taken. What are you constantly improving your skills? What are some other non-technical things you're doing? Are you volunteering somewhere else? Communicate all of that to show that you're somebody who has a disposition for personal development and continuous learning. I hope this has been really insightful and helpful for you. So I'm going to take any question we have now before we go into the interview simulation. I'm going to take a few people and then we'll practice some of the things that we've learned. You see the way I'm teaching this class and I'm giving you examples so that you know say you don't know what I'm talking about. So I gave you enough examples throughout the course of my training this morning. So I expect nothing less. So let's take any questions that we might have from the class and then we can go back. So I'm just going to, sorry, I'm trying to go to the chat so I can see your questions. So there's a question from Sanusi Faridat. As someone applying to be a graduate trainee in an organization, what kind of questions do you think I should ask the interviewer since my role has not been defined yet? Very good question, Sanusi Faridat. So the kind of questions that we expect you to answer in this case would be questions around your continued interest in the organization. So if you have done your research about the organization, you can ask, okay, you can ask questions about the organization. Oh, now, so for example, like, I so like one question I would typically say is you can ask about the expectation. So I know this is a graduate trainee role, but I'm particularly curious as to what are some of the or like what would you advise someone who is coming into this role, to pay attention to for them to succeed? Or you can say what personal development opportunities are available within this organization for me who is coming into this role as a trainee. You can ask questions around timelines of the trainee program. You can ask questions around opportunities for promotion post-trainee period. So there's just a whole lot. You just need to be creative around it. Think about some of the questions or things that you're not sure of and ask them politely. And I'm sure that they'll be excited to answer your questions. Okay, so that's from Farid. I hope that answers your questions, like Farid. That question I'm seeing on the chat is I have a question from also Farida also sent another question. No, she sent it. Okay, it's the same question. I already answered that. Uche's iPhone. I remember the Achebe. Achebe Samson. See, that person is in the market. I'm sure that person is in the market, but he's not in this class. Please, sir. Oh, so these are okay. I'm going to answer Uche Okonkwo. Okay. Oh, like Uche's iPhone has changed to Uche Okonkwo. I was going to say that I heard they had been asking you guys to like use your appropriate name for this class. What if a step you want to take is a month away from the interview dates? How can you answer the question of? I'm not sure I understand your question, but I think like what you're asking is if you're just a few days to the interview, how do you answer the question of self-development? I feel like self-development should not be only informed by you having an interview. If you are particularly interested in growing in the role that you've applied for, you should be constantly developing yourself before having an opportunity to apply for a job. So your personal development is not dependent the on the view of an interview. It should be a continuous effort on your part. The other question is from Baba Isaac Aisha. She said, I'm into construction services. If I am to go for interview, what questions should I be expecting? Expect technical questions around the field that you're going into. So if you're in construction, you should know a lot about construction because they're going to ask you questions around construction. I hope that answers your question. The other question is from Marcus Daniel. Okay, no, he said yes, he answered the question because I had, okay, that's cool. So I have Miss Hillary hands up. So Hillary, if you have any questions, please let me know and I'll try my best to answer.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the class. It was really enlightening. My question is this. I hear a lot of people say that in an interview, once the interview asks you that, do you have any question, that it is very important you don't say no. But what if you genuinely don't have any question? Is it that you are still to force yourself to ask the person something?
See, okay, that's a very interesting question. So my answer to that is, see, if you're interested in that role, there's no way you'll not have a question. There's no way you're not going to have a question. There's no like forcing yourself. If you don't have questions about the role, you should have questions about the organization. If you don't have questions about the organization, you can have questions around expectations. What are you expecting someone in this role to deliver? Someone who was in this role before, what was the challenge that they faced? you can just get creative around it. It communicates your interest in that position. So if you don't ask questions about the role, about the organization, about the industry, or about expectation, I mean, if you have all of that, there's no way you'll not have a question to ask. I hope that answers your question. Any other question that we have before we go into the interview simulation? Okay, so there's a question from Uche Okonkwo. She said that the self-development course that she wants to take that is relevant to the role you're applying for is going to start in a month's time when the interview of the role is in 2 days' time. So how do I answer? I mean, you can always say, oh, I'm currently, like taking this course in XYZ. So if it's UI UX, you can say I'm currently enrolled in XYZ course in this field. And it already goes to show that you're already taking initiative and you're already doing something about your to show your interest in the role. So you can also say, oh, I'm currently enrolled in this, I'm currently enrolled in that, to just show that you're already doing something. So it's always good to say that, I'm currently enrolled in this class, I'm currently enrolled in the other class. So let's have Hillary. Let's have, what's the first person's name now? I think is Adeolu. I can't remember now. Um, let's have Isam and let's have Moses. I'm trying to remember the first lady's name. I think it's Olua or something like Olaolu. I see the name, I remember. I know there's Idowu Moses. I know there is Sam. I know there is Miss Hilary. I want you guys to introduce yourself again. Haven't understood what we talked about. So introduce yourself like you are in an interview room with me. Let's start with Miss Hilary. So we're already getting into the interview simulation proper. Like Hilary, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so let's go. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Hilary Ajami Koko. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, which I got from Viva Open University. I have worked in my work experience has revolved around customer service, sales, and also virtual assistants. At the moment, I am taking a course with ALX as a virtual assistant, and I am actively looking for roles that relate to virtual assistants. I believe my attention to details, my project management skills will make me a great fit. So I'm open for some job connections. Thank you.
A round of applause for Hilary. Please, who can tell the difference between her introduction now and her introduction before? You can use the chat. Awesome. Very much so. She was very detailed. Great improvement. Absolutely. I agree with them. Hilary, your introduction at the start of this class has significantly improved. It communicated a lot of value, communicated a lot of impact, and it was very intentional. So I'm really happy about that. So let's have Ismail, sorry, and then we're going to have Moses. The other lady, I'm forgetting her name now. I can't remember her name. I
I
think
think
it's
it's
Ololu.
Omobola, something like that.
Omobola. Yeah, but I can't see her on the call. Okay, so let's have Ismail Adam to introduce himself again, like he's in an interview room. Okay, can we have Moses instead?
Okay, this is Moses. All right, can
Moses,
I
please
go
go
on?
ahead. Yes, please.
Okay, I'm Moses Idowu, and I love to be called Idowu Moses. My background is in architecture. I have ONDBSc, MSc Architecture, and currently I'm a business owner. I have a couple of companies. I have Academic Consults, have Proscape. Academic Consults, it's about education. We educate people on finance, we educate people on academics. Proscape, it's an architectural company. We design, we construct. And I've done traditional marketing. I've been tired of it. I got tired of it. So that's why I'm into digital marketing. So currently I'm a beginner level at digital marketing. So thank you so much. I look forward to working with some of the participants, the facilitators, and Let's Factory Foundation. Thank you.
Awesome. Who can tell the difference? Who can tell the difference between like the Moses' previous introduction? If you were in the class on time when we started, I'm sure you can tell the difference between his initial introduction and his introduction now. Absolutely. Okay. So let's have an interview simulation. I'm going to call on stage 2 people. Yes, Uche. Yeah, Uche. I think that's a very good observation, Uche. And when he introduced himself initially, he only said his name, and he didn't even say much. But now he gave us a bit more. We know more about him. You know, like previously, I didn't know he owns 2 businesses. But by virtue of this class we've had, he has introduced that information, and that can really be a start to even deeper conversation with him in an interview. So I know that he has I didn't even know before that he has like a background in architecture. Now I know. I know he has 2 businesses. I know he has done marketing before, traditional marketing. Now he's exploring digital marketing, and then he's taking steps toward. So all of that is, it's enough for me to sort of like have an idea of who he is and what he has done, and that can help me better assess him as a candidate, for an interview. So yeah, very well done, Moses. Very well done, Hilary. So we're gonna have 2 people do a simulation because I need to go very shortly. I've overstressed myself on this class. I like to take my time to ensure that everyone understands what we're talking about. So let's have Pearl Mbowana. So Pearl is going to do the first simulation, and then we're going to have Victory Ogunye take on the second simulation. Please unmute your mic and let's get started. I'd largely prefer if you can turn on your video, but if you cannot, that's also fine. But just before we go into that, I think we have a question from Idris Ogumakinde. He said, in a situation or in a way whereby the work experience I have is not directly related to the role I put in for, what can you suggest as steps to take during the interview? Example, how can I relate my software skills to virtual assistants when applying for a job? So to be very honest with you, it's very hard to do that, right? Except you have shown steps towards your interest in virtual assistantship. So for example, if you're a software developer and you want to go into virtual to become a virtual assistant, you need to show that you are doing something about improving your skill in that level by, for example, taking the course on like virtual assistantship with ALX, like Hilary is doing. you need to have maybe volunteered to be a virtual assistant somewhere. And that's where the question of what personal development efforts have you taken to prepare you for this job opportunity? That's where that question comes in, because you need to show a track record of interest. If not, it's just what it's going to communicate is that you are just looking for anything or anywhere to do, whether or not you are skilled for it or not. And that's not a good look, to have. So yeah, I believe that answers your question. So let's have our volunteers. The person I called, I can't see her on the call again. Please, you guys will be with the who did I call for the first time? I can't remember her. Okay, Pearl. Yes, it was Pearl. Pearl Umbowana. Please unmute your mic. Pearl.
Hello, hello.
Hi. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Awesome. I feel like I've heard your voice before. You asked a question around the interview in the last class we had. Is that correct?
No, it's my first time engaging. Actually, I've been writing on the chat side, but I haven't
Oh,
unmuted my
okay.
mic before. Yes.
No, like what I was saying on the previous class on CV writing and cover letter. Were you in that class?
Yes, I was, but I didn't engage
Okay,
verbally.
that's
Yes.
cool. So it's great that we're having you engage now. So is it possible that you can turn on your video?
Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, the surroundings they don't permit. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we're going to have a first simulation. So I'm going to give you your candidate persona. So, Pearl, you're applying for the role of a digital marketer at Net Factory Company. Now, I'm using a familiar company so that it helps your answers. And I'm the recruiter, I'm the HR manager here at Net Factory, and I want to interview for the role of a digital marketing specialist at Net Factory. So we're going to run an interview simulation. I wish you can turn on your video so that we can get a bit of like body language and non-verbal cues, but that's fine. We're just going to work with what we have. So are you ready, Ampel?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. So one more question. Have you also been following the class based on all the things we've been discussing?
Yes, I've been following, except that today I wasn't aware that we'll be starting at 11 and that we'll be having a class. So I got in a bit late because of the time difference that we're having. So when it's 10 that side on my side, it's 11.
Okay. Where are you dialing in from?
I am from South Africa.
Oh, cool. It's good to have you here. Well,
Thank you. Thank
all right, so let's get into character. Okay. Good morning, Pell. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Say. I am doing very well. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So my name is Praise. I'm the HR manager here at Nets Factory, and I'm super excited to have this conversation with you. I received your application for the role of a digital marketing specialist here at Nets Factory Africa. Just to get us started, can you tell me a bit about yourself?
Thank you for having me, Mr. Praise. Well, I am Bonapel. Um, I I am from South Africa, like I said. Um, I have a degree in environmental planning and development and an honors degree in anthropology. But lately, I have more interest in digital marketing. So hence, I applied for the Next Factory program for a specialist. Um, I'm more interested in the role because I want to be more into the remote working phase. So that's why I applied for this role. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Pearl. I'm particularly interested in the you know, a bit of your experience or your academic background. I really want to know, can you help me understand how, like your background is going to contribute to your overall success here in the for this role?
Okay, firstly, I would like to concentrate more on my anthropology studies. So since digital marketing, it's more focused on getting more information or getting more data on people, how they utilize social media platforms in order to engage with companies. So what I did in anthropology is basically focusing on studying humanity behaviors, so which I believe will contribute more when it comes to the program or the post that I've applied for, just engaging more from the theoretical background of anthropology and getting to know more how people behave. What is it that they enjoy doing? What is it that they enjoy immersing themselves in? And why do they choose products that they utilize than the others? So having that knowledge, I believe it more useful in the role that I'll be taking part in your company.
Nice. That is really, really, really well put together, Pal. I think, it was very spot on. Um, so but can you tell me a bit about some personal development steps that you've taken, to further communicate your interest in the field of digital marketing?
I firstly I've been studying a bit, so I've been reading quite some books on digital marketing, your SE, which is search engine optimization online. I've also been watching a lot of YouTube videos around that on how to build some sort of a brand and a professional knowledge on digital marketing. And I've also taken part in your program, the YTP program, which teaches more about digital marketing. So those are the things that I've been engaging myself in to try and gain more knowledge in the field.
Awesome, awesome, pal. Oh, that's nice. So can you tell me about a time when you've you have multiple priorities, competing deadlines, um, in any engagement that you've been on, and how you were able to manage it to still achieve your overall objective?
Okay, just recently I hosted a career expo in my community. So I was the one who initiated or came up with the idea to have a career expo. So meaning that I was in charge of almost every part, from the planning phase to the execution to getting the speakers on board in the schools. So I was multitasking or being part of almost all the roles as much as I had people who were assisting me. So in order for me to be able to ensure that I get to do everything accordingly and within a time frame, what I did was to try and delegate when wherever I could, and ensure that I prioritize as well. I made sure that I do the work that is required in a certain time frame, which is more of a priority that needs to be done firstly. I did that first, and then after I'm done with it, then I will lastly focus on the things that they don't really have some sort of like, they're not needed quickly, if I can put it that way. So it was about prioritizing, delegating where I could, and ensuring that I follow a time frame. I have a timetable to ensure that on this time I'm doing this, getting that task done, and move to the next. Yes.
Okay, that is really good. I think my final question to you, Pearl, would then be, can you tell me a bit about some of the strengths and weaknesses that you have and how that relates to this role here at Net Factory?
The strength that I have, firstly, I'll focus on the strength. The strength that I have is that I'm good when it comes to multitasking. I'm capable of juggling a few there and there. Like I said before, that I ensure that I prioritize my tasks based on how much, which is more important than the other. So that enables me to ensure that the work that needs to be done with agency, I attend to that firstly. So I'm good with multitasking and meeting deadlines. But when it comes to my, the unfortunate part, when it comes to my weaknesses, is that I end up finding myself being engaged in a lot of things. And as a result of being too engaged, you might find that some things will lack than the other. Like, for example, when it comes to personal development, I will try to read, I will try to partake in other organizations, personal development programs, which might be at the end might cost me a bit. So that is one of the weaknesses that I have.
Okay, that is all great, Pearl. It's been a pleasure speaking to you so far. I'm going to give you an opportunity. Do you have any questions for us so far?
Yes, I do have a question. My question will be, in the role that I'll be partaking in, do you have some sort of like platforms where I can be able to equip myself even more when it comes to personal development and gaining more experience in the role, so that when there are opportunities to climb the ladder in your organization, I'll be exposed to that? Do you have such platforms for career growth?
Absolutely. So here at Nest Factory, we're very big on driving our employees' experiences and skills. And part of like what we do is, like funding our employees to, um, take courses on platforms like Coursera around their interests, around the skills or the role that they're currently occupying. So that overall improves their skill set, improves their overall ability to function in those roles. And we're very big on people who are intentional about their personal development. So that's it's great that you're asking this question. It just goes to say a lot about yourself. But yeah, pretty much we're all big on that, and we create opportunities for career growth through various channels like a promotion cycle, employee recognition, and the likes of things like that. So, but yeah, pretty much that's what we have available right now.
Okay, thank you so much. I can't
All
wait
right.
to be part of your team.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time and for joining the interview. We'll be in touch with you on the outcome of our conversation. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, please let's give it up for Pearl, please. Let's give it up for Pearl. Let's hear it in the chat. Let's all give if you don't clap, I will call you up. All of you that are just mute on this call. Let's give it up for Pearl. You can use the emojis, you can use the goodness. I feel like she did an amazing job. And you see how all of the things that we discussed in this class all came together from the way she responded. But I'm going to give two people an opportunity to say some of the things that they loved about Pearl's engagement. Delight, your mic is unmuted and you're in a noisy environment. Okay, so can we have two volunteers? I need someone to say something based on how Pearl has performed on this simulation we just had. Anybody? Udrak Rock, awesome. Udrak, please, let's hear from you. Udrak, you can unmute your mic. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Hi.
So sorry that I joined the class late today because of network. But from what I heard earlier, I think I'm really impressed. There's so many things I've learned, and I'm sure I'll make use of them. I want to sincerely appreciate this group for making such a training. It is so deep, and it has really exposed me to several things I never knew. They are so detailed, giving opportunity for people to express themselves, to ask questions. And then those questions attended to is one of those things I really admire about the class, because I have attended classes like this online. Not everybody have this opportunity, but taking time to pick people one after another and attend to their challenges, answer their questions deeply, is one of those things that I admire most. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ojak. That was really, really heartwarming to hear that feedback. Um, so yeah, I really appreciate it. Everyone is screaming Pearl in the chat. Pearl, what are you going to do about this recognition that we're giving you here today? Um, awesome. So I'm just gonna randomly pick. I'd like to hear from Hanson. Hanson, if you can unmute your mic. You know,
Hi, hi, good noon. I'm Hamza. Sorry, can you hear
hi.
me?
There's a sound from your end. It's like a cracking sound. I think I can hear you now.
Okay, okay, okay. So,
Oh my goodness. We cannot hear you, Hanson. It's breaking up.
okay, hold on. Huh?
Say again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes. I can hear you. It's better now.
So, Pearl, I love how brief and detailed she was. Like, she knows what she
Mm-hmm.
wants. She knows what she's looking for, and and she knows what she brings to the table. She's not like she was not beating around the bush and like the all the mannerism or some things. Like
Mm-hmm.
she went straight to like straight to the point. Sorry, like she was so brief, but she explained everything well, and
Mm-hmm.
like just go straight to the point. And she's really good. And the confidence was everything, and I love it. That's what I.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for the feedback. Let's hear from Olawumi Gani. Olawumi Gani, you're up, so please.
Oh, yeah, I'm the story about money. Hi
So
everyone.
we cannot
Can
hear
you
you
hear
very
me?
well. Cannot hear you very well.
You can hear me. Hello,
Yeah, you're sounding a bit
hello.
far from your device. But you can go on. I think you can try.
I just want to say kudos to you. Like, just managed to drop your reading and your
Okay, so
followers.
we actually cannot
You
hear
can
you.
follow.
We cannot hear you.
The
Yeah,
network.
I'll have to move on quickly.
No
Okay.
problem.
So unfortunately, I don't think we can take any more simulations because of time. Um, I've spent over 3 hours with you guys. Ideally, this was to be for 2 hours, but I just wanted to take the time to explain. So, but I'm glad you guys were able to see firsthand how an interview simulation. So, one thing I wanted to say is that there was something that was really fascinating about that simulation, which was the fact that I asked Pearl how her background in anthropology was relevant to her application or, or was relevant to the role of digital marketing. And the fact that she was able to establish a connection was very fascinating. She spoke about how some of the work that she does with anthropology is understanding human behavior. And then she was able to still link that to digital marketing, which is about understanding your audience and knowing how to target them, you know, very intelligently, right? So that was very good. Many times your background, right? Your background might not be ideally, or it does not even relate to the role you're applying for. But always look for a way to create a connection between how your background can contribute to your success in your role, right? Something else I want to highlight, you guys saw the way she leveraged the STAR technique to answer the interview question around competing priorities. So she discussed the situation. She told us about a story of when she organized an event. She told us what the task was and what was her specific action, and then that led to the result which she also shared with us. That was very spot on. When you're asked the behavioral question, it's very critical that you leverage the STAR technique because it's going to really put you in a good light to your prospective employer to communicate your value. You saw the way she spoke about her weakness and what she was doing about. Okay, no, I think the only thing that was the feedback I was going to give to Pearl was when she spoke about her weakness. She didn't maybe say what she's currently doing to turn that weakness into a strength. When you give a weakness around the fact that, your engagements, because of how you like to multitask, you can have like cannibalization of activities. What do I mean by that is that one is feeding to the other, and then it makes it really difficult for you to put it all together. So when you say that as a weakness, it's very important that you say what you're doing to improve on that weakness and don't just leave it at that. Also, when you mentioned your strength about multitasking, I was hoping to hear you say how that was going to translate to value, for the employer. So when you mentioned your strength around multitasking and things around, like getting your hand around a lot of things, maybe you could have said something like, okay, and that strength is going to help you effectively, drive multiple engagements to ensure that the overall digital marketing strategy of Nest Factory, is, like put in place. That brings it home. You're not just saying it and hanging it up on the air. You're making it, you're personalizing it to fit what your employer to fit to the case of your employer. All right. So that is the only feedback I have that I was going to share with you. But overall, Pearl, you did very well. Like everyone was saying, you were very confident. Your answers were very short and sweet. They were answering the question. You were not blabbing. You were answering what the question was asking you. Right. So very well done. And thank you guys so much for participating in this session. I'm going to drop off now, but I really enjoyed this class and I hope that you did as well. And you've learned from everything that we've discussed here today. So thank you so much. I think it's time for you guys to sign attendance now. Chifa, it's you can as well drop the attendance now for them to sign.
Admin, please, we need the attendance, so. Net factory admin, please send the attendance. I was logged out and just logged in again.
Please, we need the attendance, so please, admin, we need the attendance.